This is the art project. We're going to do a project that I call the Two-Faced Drawing Project, and it's basically two-faced because I'm going to use two of my faces in order to do the drawing, or actually in this case two of my friends' faces. I'm going to combine two different expressions together into one picture to get something kind of creative and surrealistic looking. You have probably already seen a slideshow presentation by your teacher on surrealism. So here it goes. Number one, you're going to take two pictures of your friend, one with a regular face and one with a silly face. Step two, you're going to creatively combine those two pictures together. In this case, I just took the funny picture and ripped the eyes out and the mouth and tongue out, and I'm going to use stick glue to glue them down. I glue the eyes upside down to give it a more surrealistic appearance. Step three, you're going to put a 1-inch grid on the photograph that has now been combined together to make a surrealistic photograph. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to draw a 2-inch grid on the larger drawing paper along with a 1-inch border. So if you need to slow this down, drawing a grid on your paper is a handy little technique that a lot of us artists use to enlarge something, and so you really need to kind of practice it and learn how to do it. In order to make it happen, I am putting a mark first on the 1-inch and then every 2 inches, which would be 3, 5, 7, and so on. I'm doing that on both the top and the bottom, and then combining them together to make straight lines that are all parallel to one another. And then I turn the paper sideways and I do it again. If you need to, slow this down, rewatch it, or go to another video and do a search for how to make a grid. Once I've done that, I'm going to enlarge the photo 1 square at a time. The entire reason for doing the grid is because, well, I don't know how to draw a picture of my face. I don't know how to draw a picture of my friend's face and get it really accurate, really just really as good as I want it to be. But by drawing what's in each square one at a time, there is no way that it can be improportionate to the real thing. If I put in square one what is actually in square one, and then put in square two what is actually in square two, and so on, they will all come together like a puzzle, and it'll be the right size, and it'll look pretty good. And this is true even if I rearrange these pieces, like having eyes that are upside down, or having two mouths on here and having a tongue sticking out and all that kind of stuff. I've got two photographs combined together here, and because I put the grid on there, I'm able to enlarge them and draw it accurately. So I really wanted to do a video where you just watch the whole thing in real time, but it took me over 2.5 hours to do that. 18 minutes alone just to do the grid. So then I erase the grid, and I erased it lightly so I can still see it. And then I am going to do the marker. Let me show you something real quick. You see this right here? That is white, but this is not white. The background is not white. And so if that's the case, you're going to have to shade that in a little bit with something. And so the background's white. I mean, the edge of the paper is white, but the background is not. Now the forehead right here is a little bit lighter, but it's not white like the edges of the paper. So make sure you're paying attention to those subtle nuances of value and cover your entire paper with shading. In this case, I am using what's called hatching, cross-hatching, and in some cases even stippling. And I do this 1 square at a time so that I get all of the values as accurate as possible. Because of this, you're going to see the divisions between squares a little bit, but it's not going to be a big deal. When it's all done, you're barely going to notice it. But the idea behind hatching and cross-hatching is that the paper starts out white, and the more marker you add to it, side by side, closer together, the darker it's going to get. In fact, if I put a stripe of marker and then overlap that stripe with another stripe of marker and then overlap that one with a stripe of marker and so on, eventually I'll just have a black space, for as far as I've colored it in. But if I leave a little bit of white in between the lines, it'll appear to be gray. And you can see this at work where I've got more marker and where I have less marker. But also notice I'm using multiple markers. I've got a fine point and an ultra fine point, and I've even got a fat fine point. The fine point is, to me, Sharpies are a little bit misleading. The fine point Sharpie is really kind of a big Sharpie. It is not like a pen, and so it leaves a pretty big line. And where I know that it's going to be a pretty dark value, either dark gray or black even, I just go ahead and I use the fat Sharpie to fill it in. But if it's not solid black or very close to it, then it's better to use the skinny ultrafine Sharpie to do it. And I'm just building these up a little bit at a time. Sometimes you'll see me go over the same area twice or three times, and that's just to kind of build it up and make it darker. Now, again, I don't know anything about drawing eyes. To be honest with you, it's really difficult to just draw an eye. But if I have something to look at and I examine the curves and the angles and the undulations of line, then I can do that. And then when you stand back from it, it'll look like an eye. The trick to doing the mustache is to look at the values that are present. I'm not just scribbling here, although it may look like it because I sped the video up. But the trick is to look at the values that are present in their little shapes. And so while it may look like I'm just doing a lot of scribbling, I'm actually trying to make it darker where the mustache is darker and lighter where the mustache is lighter. There are some gray hairs in his mustache. There are areas where the light's hitting it better, and so on. And I'm just trying to get that as good as I can. Here's another example of just laying lines beside one another to create sort of a gray. And I just did that straight line hatching for the background. I did a little bit in the face, like right there, but mainly in the background. Again, there are dark places in the mustache and lighter places in the mustache. You see that right there. I toned down the brightness of that streak through the mustache by going over it with thin lines. Here's the lips. The lips had a highlight on them, and I wanted that to show up a little bit better, so I made sure that the highlight stayed clean. Another thing is you may feel a little intimidated by this because once you put down a little bit of Sharpie, you can't really go back. Don't worry about it. Just do the best you can, and make that mark. If it's a mistake, that's okay. Keep going. You've got to make a bunch of mistakes before you learn how to do this right. And when you're done, your picture may not turn out perfect. That's okay. It's practice and it's a learning experience. And then the second time you do it, you will make adjustments, and you'll get better and better at it with the adjustments that you make. So I promise, I remember when I did one of these things the first time, it didn't turn out great. It takes a while to learn how to shade using hatching and cross hatching. I tried to sort of assume that every part of the face had some sort of value in it, every part of the neck. So like his neck is pretty light compared to his beard. But remember what I said at the beginning of me shading, and that is the back of the edge of the paper is white. His neck is not white. Look at the difference right there between the neck and the white of the paper. His neck is definitely not white. And so I make sure to shade that in even with just a little bit of marker. Hey, there's the bell. I can go now. Just kidding, I'm going to stay and finish this video. If you enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up. If you found anything helpful, let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. Here's my final picture. It is pretty crazy looking. Friend of mine. Now remember, this is the inside you and the outside you. This is the regular you and the crazy you, or the happy you and the sad you. Now it's your turn. Go make some art.